Hello, beautiful people, one and all. Thank you for joining me for this chill stream, and it will be a very, very laid-back thing, driven in large part by all of you, kind people, and your questions. I have a few things that I can blather on about, but I am hoping that there will be good questions from people. I can enjoy my tasty beverage and share a bit of a low-key, low-stress time with all of you. Before we get started, please do follow this channel, Semiagog, as well as the Long Fallow sister channel, A Safer Space. There's quite a bit of content over there from that period when this channel got shut down for a while. You can check that out. It's on BitChute on YouTube. I have not set up Odyssey to run A Safer Space, though, but do follow me, certainly, over on Odyssey. Follow me on Twitter. Definitely follow me on Telegram. But the obvious interesting places to go these days, they include Telegram and Odyssey. There's a lot of stuff that you simply cannot find from other people, interesting channels to follow on places like YouTube anymore, since many of the best of the content creators have been driven off the platform. Yes, I know content creators is just a horrible expression, but until someone coins a new phrase or term to replace it, we're stuck with it. So yeah, if you head over to Telegram, there's great folks like Garoyd Murphy, who's over there on Telegram. I like him, very smart guy. Obviously, Frody Midyord is over there, whom I recommend. Morgoth is over on Telegram. He is not, however, on Twitter. And you can find these folks over on Odyssey as well. I'm there. Frody's certainly there. He's doing his Kali Yuga series. And Morgoth is taking advantage of these alternate platforms. Woes has a weekly stream that he does over on Telegram, which you can check out. It's every Monday. It's called a Gram of Woes. And it looks like Telegram is expanding the features that they have, allowing people to stream. Certainly they can stream audio. And if I'm not mistaken, I heard somebody say recently that there may be something happening with video. But then again, what the hell? What the hell do I know? What else to shill? Certainly the Praetorian Chads, the mighty folks who make all of this possible. You saw their names at the outset during the playing of the theme Anvil of Crom. My books. Yes, my books. You can buy my science fiction book, Vinculum. It is available over on Amazon. You can find it under the name Oliver Perrin, Perrin, like you see down here on the cover. And it is a dark dystopian future set in the year 2076, I believe. Man, we're getting close. And it's about a book thief who is pursued by an esoteric sect of assassins, as well as relentless corporate hitmen. Quite dystopian. Please do consider checking it out. It is called Vinculum. And there is also my collection of poetry. It's called Cinders, from the Bloomery of Youth. I know that there's so many poetry fans. So many. As a matter of fact, I know that this book, that my poems will make me rich. Yeah, so I don't really believe that. And I know none of you do either. So yeah, I have a few things that I can rattle on about this evening. Oh yeah, links. I saw Zedez is here. Thank you very much, Miss Lady, for kindly being here and moderating, posting links to the books. They're also down there in the description, the show notes, as it were. So yeah, I'm going to pour myself a beverage and let's see if you guys have any questions. Now you should be able to see over my shoulder that I have hung my shashka. It is now on the wall, and I've polished my silver. You should be able to see that the get out of the way here. How do I go? Which way do I go? Do I go this way? Yeah. Hopefully you can see down at the bottom there that kinjal, that comma, has also been nicely polished. You have to get in there and polish your silver and oil up the steel and everything from time to time. And from time to time, you have to pour yourself a delicious apple juice as well. I see Yiz is in the house. Hello, Miss Yiz. I was recently over there on Yiz's channel for her Discordant Dragons. She's asking what I'm having this evening. Some would call it apple juice. Others would quite incorrectly call it an old-fashioned. And there you have it. And I'm beginning to think maybe I didn't pour myself enough for this evening. I see Charlemagne is in the house. He's going to pour himself some apple juice as well. I also saw, and I definitely recommend his channel. He recently appeared on a sort of epic stream on things that are going on with the COOF and other things we're not allowed to discuss. He was on there, so I want to recommend Charlemagne's channel. I definitely want to recommend Prudentialist, Apostolic Majesty, who is on as well. And who else? I feel like I'm forgetting one person who is on that stream. Let me see. So I don't do my peeps wrong, who were kind enough to appear on one of my episodes. Yes, what is it? Who else was there? Who else was there? Ah, Turnip. Oh my God, how could I forget the Turnip? Turnip was in the house as well. Yeah, so he does not have his own channel as yet, though I expect very likely that will change. He's the whitest 18-year-old I know. You can find him on old streams of Academic Agents and more recent ones as well, I don't doubt. And if they're not recent, they will be soon. You can also see him over on Radlib's channel. Radlib is a fine gentleman and another part of the crew. And I think I see Minoan just mentioned Aaron McIntyre. Check him out as well. He is a part of the crew. So, what do we have now? What sort of questions do we have, ladies and gentlemen? I mean, I myself am just sitting here wondering, how this apocalyptic transformation, this series of cascading apocalyptic fuck-ups and transformations, how it's all going to wrap us up in its sweet embrace. Allow me to take the first sip of this delicious beverage. Oh, man. I'll tell you what, nothing makes a Wednesday night quite like this. Nothing quite like this. All right. I see Linda Hunter is saying something about Furphy. I did not see, there was a stream yesterday where another person I should recommend who appears on Apostolic Majesty's channel, that would be Marcus Furious Pertinax. I prefer to call him the Furious. He mentioned Furphy, and I was like, what the hell is a Furphy? And he came back in a private chat and explained to me that it means bullshit or something of the sort. I'm guessing Linda Hunter probably said the same thing. So I thank you all for that. Let's see here. This is just a chill stream, ladies and gentlemen. This is the quality of this stream will be determined in large part by the quality of your questions and input. So let's see what else we have here. We have this from Arkangelis saying, Semiagog, how are things in your area? I don't know. My state did not get much in the way of lockdowns. It really hasn't affected me much, but, I don't go out much other than to go to the post office, to go grocery shopping, to go and visit family members. But otherwise, I can't be bothered. There's just, before the whole COOF thing happened, I would still go out, I don't know, a couple times a month, once every week or two, I'd go out and see friends of mine, have drinks, smoke cigarettes, talk shit, do man stuff. But now I'm wizened and old and ancient and disgusted in large part by humanity. And therefore, I don't know what to do. I still have a few, two good friends here other than family members. And it's always, it's nice to see them and talk to them when I do, but yeah, it's kind of the trap of the interwebs. I now have access to people and the ability to speak with them, not just with audio, but with video, quite comfortably, with, good speeds and good connectivity around the world. And it has, in some respects, spoiled me because, I grew up where I ran a post office box and did things with fax machines and ran a zine using all the copy machines at Kinko's and the SE30, Mac computers that you could rent in order to do your quote unquote desktop publishing. And I carried on something of a correspondence with people around the world. It was very interesting, but I had to walk up to the post office box and bicycle up there. I think I was 20 at the time, working as a bouncer in a nightclub. They didn't know I wasn't 21 and didn't care. And you had to actually open mail. I wonder how many people who are watching have ever conducted a correspondence with stamps and paper, what they like to call snail mail now. So, once upon a time, I had to accustom myself to having to wait a considerable amount of time to contact someone and get an answer back from them. But it's kind of cool because once you got it rolling, just about every day you had mail that came in to which you could respond. And I managed to overcome my provincial location at the time in the Southeast by doing that. Now we have this sort of golden age where I can, hop on an academic agent stream or talk with Frody if he comes on a show, or like I said, tune into Millennial Woes or Geroid talking over on Telegram. And so in some respects, it spoiled me because I can select the people whose thoughts are of most interest to me, whose speaking style or attitudes and things best reflect or complement or whatever my own, at least as far as I see it. No endorsement of me expressed or implied on the part of these other people I mentioned. And so then I think to myself, am I going to go out with my 2 friends here or reach out to 20 or 30 people that I can chat with? So in some ways it's very, very interesting. I think it's a good thing. In other ways, there are real problems because you don't have that face-to-face interaction. That is a real problem. It is a real limitation. And it's very much a two-edged sword. That brings with it as much, in the way of problems as it does putative solutions. But I'm certainly not the first person to observe that there are all kinds of problems with tech, the things that it has facilitated, and likewise the problems that it has created. So I guess that's a really roundabout way of responding to Archangelis saying, I haven't been out that much. I have noticed, like when I'm driving around or going to the grocery or whatever, there's a lot of tension with people. I mean, you get it in the city anyway, but I'm not talking about being out in 5 o'clock traffic. I'm just talking about, riding up to a grocery store at like 7 in the evening. And there are people who are, running the trailing end of yellow lights, rolling over into red lights and like blocking intersections and laying on their horns or, looking all aggressive out of their windows. People seem to be fairly tense. And I guess it's just the new normal, as they would like to say. The new normal. Yes, the new normal. Try that on for size, plebes. Yes, the new normal. So what else do we have for questions? I realize that wasn't the best answer ever, but, I'm trying. What else do we have here for questions? Okay, I'm going to look over here at this version of the chat because it's easier for me to see the @Semiagog. Colonel Crayon says we're closer to the setting of Vinculum than we are to Beatlemania. Yes, I'm afraid that is the case. Hallelujah. Okay, Sulla said, how much Evola am I familiar with? I have only started reading his book on sexuality, sex and magic, or whatever the hell it's called, or esoterica and sex. So that's the about the extent of my Evola familiarity. I mean, at this point, I've heard many other people talk about him many times. I've caught some of the episodes over on Philosophicat's channel. I also recommend her highly. So, I mean, I have a little bit more understanding of him than I would just from the little bit of the book I've read, but I have not had time to look into esoterica much these days. Those of you who've followed for the channel for a while probably know I run a little series called Ezo for esoterica, and it's been a while since I have posted one. Actually, I think the last one is probably that one I did with Philosophicat on carnivals. Nope, I didn't even file that under Ezo. So the last Ezo episode, and I'll recommend this whole series highly, is one I'm working on with the redoubtable Anteos, a German historian who has been exploring the history of secret societies and to some extent how that overlaps with secret services. And we've been tracking it from going back to the period of the Florentine Neoplatonists, folks like Cosimo de' Medici, Pico della Mirandola, Marsilio Ficino, all the way up to our coming episode. We just dealt with the Rosicrucians and the Illuminati And now we're going to be moving on to the French Revolution. And from what I'm hearing from Anteos, I can't let out too much now. I have to build some anticipation. It's like the nightclub lines where you don't let them all in at once. You allow the line to wind around the block so people get interested. But it does seem that that's going to be just the part on the Masons, and the French Revolution is likely going to be at least 2 episodes. So that will be coming up soon. So what else here? I'm a little bit out of order. Vorpal Anvil says he loved the D&D stream the other day. Do more stuff like that if possible. Yeah, we'll see. I'd like to. I like the everyone I talked to on that. They were all interesting guys. I was very happy that Rick Stump came and joined us. Certainly happy to have the mighty Morgoth on. He needs no introduction. He's, of course, much, much better known than I am. So I enjoyed talking about it. The trick is to find a balance, and I'm not sure if we were successful in it, between attention to the kinds of details that avid players of the game are aware of. As I said, the balance between that and aspects of it that are of more general interest to people. And that's kind of the challenge there. If I can work out how to approach that, I certainly will. Colonel Crayon says, Semigog, in your view, what is the law and what is it for? That sounds like it's some esoteric reference that I'm supposed to get. Or I'm supposed to say like 93, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law, and let love be the law, love under will. So yeah, I'm sorry if that's probably some esoteric reference that I should get, and I'm going to be ashamed of later when somebody reminds or explains it to me. But if it's not, I don't entirely understand the question. Zedez says, cheers, Oliver. Really is delicious. I swear it. Let me see what else here. Further questions. Was the GOP, this is from Tuesday, FA Tuesday, was the GOP California recall effort only to display the sickness out in the open? I have no idea. And I think we're still waiting on some remainder of the votes to be cast, but they've already sort of called it for the Democrats, I think. I haven't even really been paying attention because it's so obviously fortified. I mean, if anything on earth is going to be fortified, it's, California dominated as it is by, San Francisco and Los Angeles and Chinese inroads, and that group that has long been ensconced in Hollywood, a kind of Praetorian Guard for commies, if you will. Yeah, trade unions, all kinds of crap going on there. So I don't know what it is. I'm waiting to hear what the last of the shakeout is from it. I think the only point worth mentioning there is that it does seem likely that people who prior to this latest business with the recall might have been inclined to dismiss claims about fortification, that you're going to see an increasing number of people saying, hey, wait a minute, maybe it's not as far-fetched as it might have previously seemed to them. In any case, obviously, it's been quite clear to most of the people watching this channel for quite some time. And now, what do we have for the next question? Oh, well, now, Linda Hunter is explaining more about Furfies, a mobile water tank hydrating the staff on work sites. So a mix of gossip and Chinese whispers. So it's like water cooler gossip. So a Furfy is like a truck with a water tank on the back that all the convicts drink out of. I'm sorry, descendants of convicts. I'm sorry, more properly, descendants of prison guards, as I've been learning recently. I will have to inquire further with the Furious Pertinax to find out more about that. Let's see here. I'm just going to go ahead and try and put this one on screen. Well, let me get to this one because this one's right in front of me. It's from the mighty Maine. He says in Morgoth's new video, he analogized the internet to the ocean in terms of land power versus sea power. Corporations use the internet ocean to fight the land-based nation states. Yeah, it was an interesting carryover. I actually just finished watching it. And it was interesting to see him with some stuff up there with Heartland versus Rimland and the rest with Mackinder, and then later with Spickman and others. And it's always, I mean, there's just something about that Border Reaver accent, talking about strategy and looking at maps that's, you gotta like Pawa. I found it interesting. Certainly, it seems clear that we should all look to what the equivalent of choke points are, or strategic positions, as he did, when he was looking at the idea of Gibraltar and its value in and of itself versus its value as a geostrategic choke point, at the mouth of the Mediterranean. I was kind of surprised, though, that he didn't go into space, because he had a lot of the diagrams about the network surrounding the Earth, and he did not really look at space. However, I mean, I can understand that given what he was, given the parallels that he was trying to draw, it wasn't necessary for him to kind of take the control of choke points the next step in terms of physical manifestation and Earth and empirical things, which would be moving up to the moon as a choke point, moving up to orbit and then to the moon as successive steps and sort of establishing a choke point over all of the Earth. He didn't need to do that because he was trying to draw the parallel with the control of networks and institutions, and the fact that you can't even look at the playing board these days so much as a group of states. And I completely agree with him. I've made similar observations of my own, focusing on different aspects certainly, but that have a lot in common with what he was observing in the video. And one of the things that I often get into it with people about is they'll always be talking about globo homo and the destruction of nationalism and the variety of ways in which we're all supposed to be interchangeable and borders disappear, and then they'll turn around and they'll be like, China's based, or this country's based, or that country's not. And I'm like, this group of people certainly would be the one that would be the most likely to realize or recognize that the very idea of nation states is of always questionable and usually only contingent value when you're analyzing a situation or who's doing what and the rest. And yet these very people who, as I said, are always having words like globo homo come out of their mouth, they'll knee-jerk revert to these ideas of, the American empire as though it's really America. It's just, people have a lot of problems with, let's call it, this is kind of a decent phrase, legacy hermeneutics. Let's call it that, where they continue to observe these sort of these empty shells of outward forms that no longer really apply, but because they've been so heavily encoded into their speech and their assumptions, they somehow survive. I don't know, just a few things straight off the cuff regarding my thoughts following watching Morgoth's latest. It's a little over 30 minutes. Just finished watching it. Would definitely recommend it. Everybody go check it out. Tell me, Conan, what is best in life? I'm going to go ahead and have myself a cigarette with this as well. All right. Also, I would love if people threw out good ideas for streams and guests. Just pepper them in there. I mean, I might not be able to respond to all of them in the chat. You can also put them in the comments, but I need to put together more of these panel discussions, which I think go very well. However, I've set myself a challenge. I don't want to just rip off AA's talent stable. Not that all the people who are over on AA's channel are, and many of them started their channels before they appeared over on AA's channel. And they're not all beholden to him for appearing. I was around for a while before I appeared on his channel, but many of us are indebted to him for helping to promote our channels, for having us on as guests. And I love having anyone from that crew over on my channel. It's just that I'm doing it so much that it's kind of like, change it up, Oliver. Quit sniping AA's people. So I want to come up with other folks. Now, it's okay if it's somebody like Philosophicat. I had her on, I think, before she ever appeared on AA's channel, so there I don't feel like I'm chiseling away at his talent. But yeah, new people, new ideas for episodes. I'm always interested to hear about. Let me get King Salmon Fish in the house says, I'm writing a book. The general concept is based on a critique of modern systems of power and oppression. It's a jab at the leftist screeds. You're a writer. Any thoughts or opinions? The only thing I can offer is the idea of using cards. And yeah, you're probably aware of that material already. It's called On Inspiration. And it talks about using cards to build up the material that you will be using for a book in terms of varieties of inspiration. And it can also be used as a kind of psychoanalysis. That is in the Ezo series, and it is called On Inspiration. Other than that, I would definitely say that whether you're working on nonfiction, whether you're working on fiction, whether you're truly working on screenplays, which is what this is most appropriate for, this thing that I'm about to tell you, I really recommend reading books on writing screenplays, particularly for anything fictional. But it works for nonfiction to some extent, in the sense that a lot of the books on screenwriting will teach you about like an Aristotelian 3-act structure. And a lot of people would be like, well, okay, I guess if it's a play or if it's fiction, that makes sense. But I think it makes sense also from the perspective of nonfiction. But I don't want to get into all of that here. I would just say that you can look. I think there's a book on screenwriting by Sid Field. It's one of the ones I read years ago. I've got 2 or 3 of them around here somewhere from when I was working on films long ago. Most don't know that I've written a number of screenplays. I co-wrote one that got a number of awards. It got an honorable mention at the Seattle International Film Festival. It got accepted at the Stockholm and Torino festivals. I think it won something at the Stockholm Festival, and it got a $50,000 prize for Target New Filmmakers something at the Los Angeles IFP Film Festival. And I wrote a number of screenplays besides that didn't go anywhere. I also acted in a movie that got completed, shot on a budget. It was pretty impressive for 2005. Never got picked up by any festivals, though. I had quite a bit to do with that. So I had a brief time dipping my toe in the world of film, which I hope to apply in my brilliant idea about old-fashioned, like 1930s style radio shows, but doing them for the right. We have to produce our own entertainment, and we must begin soon. And there's a pretty significant bar to creating a full-on film. And I know a lot more about that now, having been involved not only in writing them, but in making them, and seeing, the challenges of operating under a limited budget and this kind of thing, with volunteer actors, for example, the kind of challenges you face there, doing your own Foley work and your own sound, etc. So there is a way around that entails much less money, and really with the kind of tools that we have available to us now, with all the different people, like, White Art Collective is out there. There are other folks, producing their own music. It's relatively easy for us, if someone writes a good screenplay, to turn around and record it, working together, do a group script reading to make sure that everybody's got it together, and iron out any problems with how the dialogue's been written, and then record it. And you don't even have to be together in large part to do it. You need some people good with audio to be able to clean up, the various types of sound quality you get from the different mics that people will be using and the rest. But you could assemble that essentially, then add your sound effects, your jingles and the rest, and make it like a 1930s radio show where you have to imagine it. And in many respects, it would be better than a movie, because all the people who listen to daytime radio could listen to it. People who are like, doing drywall repair, or sweeping up at their house with Bluetooth headphones in, they could listen to the story. So basically, and plus it's got a cool trad vibe in the sense of like everybody sit around the radio once upon a time. I mean, I'm calling that trad, whatever. It's more trad than now anyway. So I think that there's quite a bit to be said for the idea of returning to 1930s radio shows, because that's an opportunity for us to produce our own entertainment content now, without the bar being very high in terms of, having to leap through some flaming hoop as regards funding. financing, etc. So that's something to think about. All that, just a sort of a spin-off of King Salmon Fish's question. Thank you for that, sir. Looks like Don Browning. Field Marshal Browning is in the house. All right. Let me see what's next. Somebody laughing at zines. How dare people laugh at zines? Dirtbags. Oh, yeah. That was the next one I was going to address. I wanted to put it up on screen, but I don't see where it is. Good gracious. So I'll just read it. Sorry. This is from Juicy Stag saying, "Hey, Ollie, hope all is well. Any updates on our beloved Mr. Rudisil?" Yes, as a matter of fact, I spoke to him yesterday and he's doing fairly well. And he told me to say hello to Lital. And he is still not well enough to do anything on a regular schedule. But he's actually now reaching out and calling me occasionally, which is something, because before I'd basically have to scratch at his door for a while. So he does sound as though he's doing better, but I mean, he's fucked up too. So, it's a tough road to hoe and it's going to take him some time, but I hope he will be back soon. And at any rate, I spoke to him just yesterday and he said he was well. And normally he'll be like, I've been better, but I've been worse. But he seemed a little bit like he was more over on the better side. So what is next? All right. What is next? Oh, we have one from Minoan. And now where the hell did it go? What is with this auto update bullshit? I'll have it right there on screen that I want to look at. And then it will disappear. Sorry, we're gonna have a little John D homage. Oh yeah, Prometheus at your fingertips, which is something Tim Rudisil used to tell me years and years and years ago. Every time he lit one of those horrible Benson and Hedges menthol cigarettes with his Zippo, and explained to me that once he jumped out of a helicopter, out of a perfectly good helicopter, to retrieve a dropped Zippo. Oh, there's nothing as delicious as a beverage and a cigarette. I'm about to move on to the next question, ladies and gentlemen. Bear with me. I just want to get the last use out of this ice with my apple juice. Sehr wir. And this is sehr good. Ja, sehr good. So the next question from Minoan. Minoan asks, at one point you had thoughts on the topic of people tending to believe a white knight is coming to save them in times of trouble. Any development on that topic? No, I would go so far as to say that I'm at the diametrical opposite end of that topic because I can't even remember it now. So, yeah, your mileage may vary. The thing is that when your brain is like a coke-addled rat on a wheel, you never have a shortage of ideas. The issue is sticking with some and completing them. But I'm going to stick a little feather in my cap soon, since I have now finished my Circassian book translation. I mean, the rough translation. And now I've just got tiny bit, almost done with the second part too, which is typesetting draft version so that the little dumgas, the symbols, are right next to the translated sections of text. So it's ready for me to send on to the Ottomanist and the other folks who are specialists with Caucasian history who can have a look at it. So I often forget things, but sometimes I stick with it, and eventually things happen as they should. But if it does come back to my mind, Minoan, I will try to remember you and to bring you up to date upon it. Coca-Cola says good apple juice. Yes, indeed it is. Alabaster says he first saw me in a millennial appearance. Yes, I was very happy to have Woes have me on. It was Woes and also Jason Kona early on, who were kind enough to welcome me on despite my laughable alt-light status and my my self-important reactions to talking about white people that were associated with the early days of my channel. You can still go back and find some of those. Most of them, though, have been taken off of YouTube. You'll have to find some on BitChute, God help you. Some might be over there on Odyssey as well. All right. Seamus O'Blaine. I can never understand how anything written, any Irish anything, none of it makes sense. Like there was a girl in school, her name was Siobhan, and she fucking writes her name Siobhan, and that's supposed to be Siobhan. The fuck? So sorry, I can't pronounce your last name. Any ideas on the use of semiotics in tech? No, I have seen some of it appearing and getting discussed, but in large part, it's just gross. Long ago, when I was actually on LinkedIn, there were a group of people who were trying to get into commercial semiotics and the rest, and it really was gross. Like there was just something disgusting about it. I am sure that as a part of the various trends that roll through the realm of design that impact things like graphic design or UI, UX, design thinking, that sort of stuff is definitely informed in some cases by knowledge of semiotics. I think it was Stone Yamashita Partners back in the day were pretty serious about bringing Keith Yamashita and those people out of the West Coast. They were pretty serious about bringing in semiotics. But a lot of it is just exactly what you'd expect. When you think about the kind of people who come out of academic training in semiotics, they're very much the humanities, very much like linguistics departments and the rest. And then they get through, the hoops of fire where they have to slob knobs and show that they will worship whatever the idol is, the rainbow colored dildo or whatever it is that they're supposed to get, 18 inches of into their neck. They'll do so and get picked up by the human resources people and pass through, the HR, running that gauntlet. And what you end up with just these small-minded lateral thinkers who, most of them that I've seen are big into the grimos, however you pronounce it, the semiotic squares and that kind of crap. It's just they're really lateral thinkers. They scurry along behind people who actually have original ideas and attempt to, it's like when I used to sit on my friend's porch and we'd chuck peanuts out there onto the moss because there were a bunch of chipmunks living around, and you'd see them, they just run from one peanut to the other and stuff it into their cheeks until their cheeks were full and go hoard them somewhere to nibble on them gently. Because, any one of them is too much food for them at once. That's what the lateral thinkers look like to me. And I would guess that the vast majority of people involved with quote unquote semiotics in the commercial realm are of that sort. I didn't meet many people like me when I was in that realm. But it's probably changed because now at this point, it's been a couple of years since I've had anything to do with it. And I was in my own sort of little, eddy area, dealing with the few clients that were still around that I was working with at that time. So maybe it's changed since. And what do we have next? I think I'm well behind. Oh, man, it just updated when I was... Curses. Damn this. Damn all of this. And I'm going all the way back up here. What the hell? Like, why would it do that in chat? You're like scrolling along, you're doing your own thing. You're way up from the bottom of the chat and the things that are coming in, and you're just looking at whatever's there. And then, bam, it just drops you to the bottom and you lose your place. Speaking of UI, all right. Yiz asked about games and whether there are any I'd like to do a deep dive stream about. No, none of those things that you mention are in my field. I just played D&D. I mean, back in the days, I played a little bit of Starfleet Battles, and I played Car Wars, the Steve Jackson game stuff. And I played, like once or twice, I played Gamma World and Boot Hill. I actually played Top Secret for a while, and Traveler a little bit. I think I had the striker rules, but never used them. So yeah, I'm out of it. I'm just a D&D guy. And even that, I don't do that much anymore. Perhaps it'll change when I'm older. I'll be like 80 playing video games in D&D because I'll be, stuck in my chair or stuck in my Craftmatic bed or my Barca lounger, my electric Barca lounger. Colonel Crayon says it's not. Let me see if I can find these so that I can put them on screen. Never mind. It's not going to happen. I'll just be boomer here, making everyone wait. Colonel Crayon says it's not an esoteric reference. I'm interested in your take on law and lawyers, broadly speaking, and the semiotics of it. There are a couple ways you could come at it. I mean, there's just sort of general stuff where you can look at major changes in signification in law. One of the favorite ones of mine is one Tim brought up years ago, and you can read a little bit about it in, I think it's Moshe Barash's book, Giotto and the Language of Gesture. He covers some of it. And it's the language of gesture in the West, which was once upon a time very important in the realm of law and legal proceedings. So if you take a look at the old, I believe it's a German text on law, medieval, if I'm not mistaken, somebody like AM would roll in here and be like, no, it's this year, but it's called the Sachsenspiegel. Sachsenspiegel. The Mirror of Law, the Mirror of the Saxons, and it's about law. And that text has a tradition of illustrations that involve the hands and how certain gestures could represent a given type of pleading. So I'm pulling it out of my ass. Maybe I don't remember correctly, but I seem to recall that there's one about where you place the left hand over the right as though to restrain it, and thereby symbolically show that you could act with your hand that has agency, the right hand, but you restrain it by choice. And so it's kind of like no contest. So there are ways in which this sort of more general hand gesture stuff made its way into law. But I haven't looked into it deeply. So I couldn't say much about it in terms of the semiotics from that perspective. However, I did discover, and this is going to be coming out in my book on a semiotics of nationalism. And now that I am done with this translation for the time being, it's going to have to get checked, and then I'm going to have to pull it back in and, adjust anything that I made mistakes on. And then I'm going to have to typeset it and go through all that crap so that I can publish it. But this means that I'm about to be able to move on to two things that have been on hold pending the ending of this translation. And those are a sci-fi book that is going to be focused on, let us say, Caucasian issues. And I don't mean the Caucasus, I mean white peoples. So yeah, I think I'm going to do a cyberpunky science fiction type thing, but it's going to focus on issues that I think the audience that I talk to would be interested in reading about. Whereas this book I wrote over a period of many years long ago, so it doesn't exactly reflect that kind of thing. The other thing that I'm going to be working on is this semiotics of nationalism, and I will be looking into what I'm about to describe to you here, Colonel Crayon, which is this business of the marks that animals use. Oh, God, how am I going to say this briefly? Oh, so I won't be here all night. Some people will be familiar with the idea that I have set forth, which is that man learned writing, so to speak, from animals, if in fact writing itself is not entirely instinctive or instinctual or based on behavioral predispositions, if you're one of the ethologists who has issues with the idea of instinct. And with that idea comes the notion that marks and signs, marks in space in our environment precede spoken language, because of course animals use them, and most animals, many of them all the way down to insects, use the marked environment to orient and integrate behavior, whereas most animals do not use speech. Therefore, it seems quite clear to me anyway that writing was around beforehand. Now, of course, that depends on how you define writing, and what the linguisticians thus far have done, trying to make the religions of the book and the word primary. They have focused on writing as something that can only be the capturing of speech. Therefore, by definition, it must come after speech. And that's why we've been locked into the kind of thinking that we've been locked into. However, my approach is to say that writing came first. And when you recognize that, you realize that there's certain types of marks. And here's where I bring it back around. Thank you for being patient to your question about the law, because we have these marks on objects. And I covered this a little bit where I said I'm wading into the IP debate. If people want to read or hear me talk more about this, there's my series on marks, which is a playlist that you can find. It's three, I think, episodes or clips. Two of which are my presentations, one in Stockholm at the hosted in the Swedish Parliament, Sveriges Riksdag, and the other one is at Leiden University, Leiden University in the Netherlands. And there is also that one that I just mentioned, the one about wading into the IP debate, where I talk about how the marks are associated with property. But I'm all over the place. Let me say it like this. Marks can serve a variety of functions. Generally, they can be filed sort of in three categories. One is an identity mark. The mark shows who you are. So think about a fingerprint. Think about a Japanese seal, which is used rather than a signature. Many people don't know in the East, they don't sign their names. They have a seal that they actually have to protect, because if somebody gets a hold of it, it's like they can sign for them. And they make a stamp. Think about that like a track or like a handprint on the wall of a cave. As I said, like a fingerprint, like a graffiti tag, like a signature. It's an identity mark. But if you are the authority, think about that, authority, the author, the maker of the mark, who thereby has authority. So think about authority itself as deriving from your ability to make the mark and have it be known, understood, and importantly, obeyed. You also have the executive mark and the property mark. So the marks, the kind of writing that comes from animals, trifurcates, if I can say that, into identity marks, property marks, and executive marks. And they all overlap. So if we're talking about the semiotics of the law, there is definitely the idea of the executive mark. So think, for example, when the Athenians, I believe, defeated the Samians, or whatever the hell they're called, the residents of the island of Samos. And they cut into their heads and then rubbed in ink to produce a stigma, or a primitive tattoo with the scarring and the pigmentation, an owl showing that they were the property of Athens. Or think about when a slave was condemned to the mines by the Romans, they would put D-A-M across their forehead. Again, it would be a stigma. They would cut it into the skin, rub ink in, and the D-A-M stood for the Latin damnato ad metallum, meaning damned to the mines. Or think about to condemn. Condemn. Dem is related to, etymologically, to deem and doom. So to deem a thing to be, to doom, which is to render judgment, to damn, again, to render judgment. They're associated with the making of a mark. If you don't believe me, then look at the word consign. He was consigned to this condition, consigned to prison. Consignum, with the making of a mark, an executive mark. So there is the idea of placing your mark on a thing. And when a mark is placed on a thing, it is made subject by the mark, which acts as a predicate. So you have this sort of fundamental distinction between subject and predicate in language. So you make something subject by placing a mark upon it, like a slave. Or think about like cropping the ears of a thief, or someone, if they didn't get killed, if it wasn't a capital punishment for coining, they might take someone's ears off, which is much like an earmark on cattle used to identify them and show property ownership. Or think about the famous Peter Lorre movie where they have M for malefactor, or when they used to take vagabonds who were wandering around and wouldn't stay put in one town, like tinkers or gypsies, and they would burn a V into their thumb for vagabond. You can see there that there is the making. If you're a person who is a bad character, that is to say, someone who has no character of their own, then the state will give you a character, which is to say, crop your ears, put an M on you, put a brand of V into your thumb, or, the idea of concentration camp tattoos, I'm not a number, right? At that point, you have been reduced and made subject your own character, if you ever had one, capite Kensi. If you ever had your own character, it is removed and you have been made a bad character, which is the use of the executive mark. It's also the property mark, because at that point, you're the property of the state. You're working in the mines. You're sent off to be a slave or a soldier or whatever. Much like people in the Bureau of Prisons today who have to memorize their BOP number. So that's just a few of these things off the cuff that I would go into in terms of the semiotics of law. I could ramble just as badly about it for a while, but I want to leave some room for other questions. So, Colonel Crayon, I hope that at least gives you a taste of some responses. So let me see what else we have. Tuesday, FA Tuesday says, is this the cigarette stream? Yes, well, yes. It's the cigarettes and apple juice stream. It's shocking how good my bullet apple juice is. You just take yourself a little bit of an orange peel and you squeeze it with a lit match, and it flames it and throws a little smoky oil from the orange peel, the rind, into it. You dash yourself a bit of good bitters, and I mix in just a touch of maple syrup, which I swear goes so well with whiskey apple juice, that I will never again use simple syrup, which just seems to me to be repulsive now at this point. As a matter of fact, I could pretty much live on maple syrup. I don't understand why everyone doesn't just have spoonfuls of maple syrup daily. Okay. Where am I now? What is the next question? That was the question about Tim Rudisill. I already answered. Somebody's saying something about Liam E69 is saying something about the Kessler effect, with which I am not familiar. Men like gods? Hang on, this thing just reset on me. Hang on now. I think I can find this again. Men like God says the problem with AA is the damned annoying accents AA and most of the guests have. It's like nails on a chalkboard. An American accent only. AA alternative is desperately needed. I don't know what you're talking about. I am not some suck boy for the Brits, but I love all the different accents there. I've already stated it quite clearly. The Morgoth Border Reaver accent is absolutely the best accent in the world. Much like, for example, the Welsh flag with the dragon and the white and the green, best flag in the world. Morgoth's accent is the best. It's the best in the world. And then there's so many other accents there that are all very, very interesting. I mean, think about Woes coming on and going, hello. I mean, Scots accents. The Welsh is very, very interesting. I like A's guest Shinobi Yaka, because you sound like a Welsh. I can't even do it. The Welsh accents, you sound like you have to talk shorter. I can't do it. Never mind. But I don't know what your problem is with the different accents that come from that place, because they're all very, very entertaining. I totally dig them. I have no problem with them. Though I will admit, the very first time I heard Morgoth on one of the Millennials of Woes, it did take me a minute. I was like, whoa, what? It took a minute. It did take a minute. But now that I've listened to him quite a bit, I completely understand it. The same kind of thing happened to me, I think, when I saw the Train Spotting movie. And some of the heavy Scots accents were like, I'm like, oh, I can tell that he's drunk in bed and he shit himself, but I don't know what he said. But even the Scots accents I can now understand. And I love the fact that they're all there. The only accents in the United States that I still like are the Southern ones, frankly. All the other New World accents, other than the Southern accents, and I'll extend it out as far as like Texas or Oklahoma. and as far north as like once upon a time Virginia, though it's now part of the blue ball sprawl. That's the only accent I like here. So I don't know what you're talking about with American accents, like Midwestern accents. It just sounds horrifying. California accents just sound like flat and dead. No offense to people from the Northeast. It's not you personally, but all of your accents sound to me like hog squealing. I hate Northern accents. Though I will say that there is an accent worse than Northern accents, and that is the damn Canadian accents, where you hear like Faith Goldie saying something, or what was her name? The one who had her little fall from favor. Oh, I can't remember. Anyway, she was saying something like, instead of flag, she says flag. the flags are flying. Yeah, horrible. So I can't knock most of the Brit accents because they're actually interesting. The only American accents that I like as much or better are Southern ones. And in terms of the Southern accents, I will tell you truly, I think the best ones are Tennessee accents. I do. They're the best. Okay. Alabaster says, can't really recommend particular people, but through dialogue on either Telegram or some other platform for your own big brain crew as semi-regular. Not really a question, but thank you, Alabaster. I note your statement. And what else do we have? Another one about Colonel Crayon. I already answered that one. You can see how lost I am. Whoa, Horse Mumbler is in the house. Old school channel friend. Here again, says, count me in on the radio plays. I grew up listening to classic radio dramas on cassette tape and have some skill as a voice actor. I can do practically any accent and tone. Very nice. All right. Well, once I have a screenplay. Let me find it. Or where is it? Well, hell, why should I show it to you guys? You're not going to have time to read it. It's called The Wheel, and it's quite good. It's not at all political. I really like the idea of coming in and doing things that are non-political, so people have entertainment. Now, when I say non-political, I should also add hastily that it's not paused, but people want entertainment, and they want it to be non-political, but also not fucking paused. So I think there's a huge opportunity for it. So The Wheel is sort of like a adventure, mystery, horror, love story type thing. And it was written for the screen. So I'd have to get with some people to figure out, areas where something that was communicated visually, you have to review it. Somebody has to have the right kind of mind to be able to have it come alive on the stage of their imagination and be like, oh, no, you're missing that because you're not going to have the visual dimension. Can we handle this with like a narrator? Can we handle this with sound effects or, whatever? So it needs to be modified in that way. But I've got at least one story almost ready to go. So if it happens, I will keep you in mind, Horse Mumbler. Michael Moore asks Semiagog, why can't we all just get along? Because human beings never have. Because crush your enemies has always been the reality of the human condition, and it will never go away. So yeah, I recognize that is almost certainly sarcasm and or trolling. But if you really do exist in that realm, I can only recommend that you go and listen to what's his name? Imagine all the people. What's John Lennon? Go listen to John Lennon's Imagine 100 times and get back to me. What else here? What else do we have? Trying to find people whose questions I haven't answered yet. And then it just reloaded on me. Thank you. Now I have to go all the way back up again. Isn't this fun, ladies and gentlemen? Okay, King Salmonfish is over and over again saying, I would like to do a stream with you. I have much to contribute. Noted. Thank you. What else do we have here? Tuesday after Tuesday. Tuesday FA Tuesday says, Semiagog, there is a theory that humans used language originally for instruction, and we hijacked our speech for abstract ideas. I'm sure that instruction very loosely construed, would have to be a part of it, because everything is about survival advantage and preparing your people or your family or your offspring for things that will happen, but have not yet happened, would have to be a part of increasing your survival advantage. And that means that it would make perfect sense that it would be used for instruction, loosely construed. And there is something interesting going on, because if you look at tagma from Greek, which also gives us, which is like row of bricks, line of footprints, tracks, insignia, or military formations, it's related to Greek tasso and taxis, which gives us taxonomy, and tag and tax, which is all categorization and marks, like tax stamps, or the marks that are used to separate different groups and categories. That is also tied to I believe taken, and you'll even see it as taken and takna, and it's related to both teach and token, but that has to do with writing rather than speech. Babyface Nielsen says Semigog writing was the advent of transhumanism. No, I would say writing is just the most fundamental and basic spatially bound mode of behavioral integration that we have. I forgot the beginning of that sentence before I said the end of it, so I'm not sure it grammatically made sense, but that's all right. I'm on my second glass of apple juice. And let me see whether or not we have other questions here. What else do we have, ladies and gentlemen? Colonel Crayon again. I recommend you check out the Sachsenspiegel. Let's see here. Semigog, what's the worst accent? I think it's that Canadian. It's that damn Canadian accent. It's fucking Canadians, man. And not all Canadians. I stand behind French Canadians. By the way, a good opportunity to plug JF Gary P's channel. Speaking of French Canadians, they don't have a bad accent, but the Anglo-Canadians, and I don't know if it's everywhere. I don't know if it's like Vancouver and Alberta, or if it's in Ottawa or something, or Toronto. I have no idea. But oh my God, some of them, like you should be embarrassed to speak. Like don't talk. Okay. Looking for more questions. Coca-Cola says, what are your favorite apple orchards? Most of mine are in the Scotch area, Jura. Well, if that's the case, my favorite apple orchards produce bourbon apples. But if I'm going to step outside of my own zone, then I like the Petit Islet apple orchards. My favorite of them being the at least 16-year Lagavulin. I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that right, and do not care. Or whatever the Lafroig is that isn't the youngest or greenest of them, which is still acceptable. But my first choice is Lagavulin, and I think it's a 16-year apple juice. Okay. Und now, where are we? Which question is next? Something interesting from Seamus O. something about Daniel Everett, with whom I am not familiar. I'll have to check that out. Okay, and I was just reading it, and it Why does it reset? I got it if I were down at the very bottom. If I were down at the very bottom, then I would understand, because it would be ready to just put the new information in and refresh. However, when I'm way up from it, when I'm not down at the bottom, why does it pull the whole thing down? Not all the time, but only sometimes when somebody posts something new. Fucking crazy making, man. I swear to God, like how much of my life has been destroyed? How much of my time has been wasted by scrolling up and down again because the damn chat window on YouTube auto resets? How much? How much? All right. Someone talking about how I can remember etymology, but not John Lennon's name. Yeah, well, I'm also getting old. I swear to God, there's truth about when you have more shit in there, you don't remember all of it. You don't forget all of it. Seriously, if you just have more shit in there as you become decrepit, as I now swiftly am becoming, and you don't remember that shit. There's just also the thing with online where you're just reviewing the vast amount of shit every day. Like I watch video clips at a minimum 1.75 speed, but if I can manage it, I'll do it at double speed. And then, I'm on 3 different social media platforms reading all the crap, and then I'm reading books at night. There's just a bunch of crap in there. And to be fair, John Lennon is no longer an important feature of my mental landscape. Except, in the sense that it's kind of like, a dog turd in the middle of your yard is an important feature because you don't want to step in it. Linda Hunter says, a stream about a nation born as a penal colony and how that's played out. Also, how the Irish and their descendants have been overlooked in the woe is me movement. No dogs, no black, no dang Irish. Yeah, except I'm not Irish. I have one British Isles ancestor, last name Osborne with no E at the end. I suppose that could be Irish blood. But I don't think so. I'm thinking it's English or Scots. So I'm not sure if I can speak on that. And I only know the Irish at one remove here in the South, and they still maintain a number of their characteristics quite clearly. But I don't know if I'm an authority on that. And I don't know how interested actual Irish people would be in talking about it, because it's something that, they've chewed through and digested and incorporated, just in the process of becoming who they are. So I don't know. I'm not qualified to do the stream, and I don't know that I'd be that interested. I would be interested. I don't know that I would be that interesting as a host for it. Kevin Miles says, as per our Telegram exchange on shared spurgery or lack thereof, I've always struggled with time management and organization. What are some insights you have as a wise, aged, not spurg? Well, first off, that's very charitable of you to think of me as wise. I will overlook you saying that I am aged. Time management and organization. What is the most important aspect of it? Man, I'm a bad one to ask. But okay, if you want to ask someone who's not good at this, okay, here's what I can answer is if you have no native gift for time management and the rest, here's how you do it. Here's how I deal with it. The first thing is an absolute rule. Absolute rule, especially if you're dealing with real life, more serious people much more serious than myself. And anyway, it's just a matter of courtesy. If you say you're going to do something at a certain time, fucking do it. Always, always, always do it. Always be on time. Always. I mean, there are times when I'll be late, but if that happens, the person that I'm dealing with will, if at all possible, and I mean at all possible, will be informed about it before I'm late. So it'll be like, oh, well, it's 20 minutes before we're supposed to meet. I'm letting you know that I'll be 10 minutes late. That kind of thing. Do not ever leave people waiting somewhere because you are a fuck up. Always do things on time. Always be there when you say you're going to be there. Now, of course, do as I say, not as I do, but I do try. And you have to take it seriously. absolutely have to take it seriously, or people will be very, very pissed about it. Now, in terms of managing your own time, I'm just so bad at it that it's just going to sound ridiculous if I try to lecture somebody on it. The most important thing that I use that keeps me from totally becoming non-functional is lists. And I'll make a list of the things that need to get done. And I'll make sure that they're sitting out there in front of me before I need to do them. So like if I get up in the morning, I know that I'm going to have a busy day tomorrow. I'm going to have the number of things that I have to get done. And if there's a time thing associated with them, I'll make some note about when it needs to get done, or I'll put the list in order with the one that is most time sensitive first. And I'll leave it sitting on my open laptop in front of the screen, like on a card or whatever. I'm not a big person for calendars and reminders. I'll use those too, though. Use a calendar, make lists. Always be on time. And let me just double check here to make sure I'm not answering some question you didn't ask. Time management and organization. Okay, organization. Well, that aspect is, for me, it's very, very psychological. I remember when I was a little kid, my mom gave me a gumball machine. And I thought it was so cool. Didn't have gum in it, but I thought it'd be cool to have a gumball machine. I mean, it's like a kid's dream, right? You can just go over to the gumball machine on top of the dresser, pull the little thing out. You don't have to put a quarter in. Clunk, little, gumball drops into it. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. So then I cleaned my room so that it would look nice around the gumball machine. The same thing is going on. I'm all over the place. I'm drinking apple juice at this point. So, your mileage may vary. But I have discovered that there is a definite relationship between how clean you keep your environment and the idea of psychological house cleaning, so to speak, and how it marries to physical cleaning. I know a number of men who have experienced this. I am absolutely sure that literally every single female watching is entirely familiar with this. All women know about this. There's a thing where when their mind is messed up, their house will get messy. And then when they got their shit together, they'll go and clean, or like, they'll clean a man out of their life. Like literally they'll it's time. They broke up with the guy's gone. They're trying to get over it. And they'll literally clean him out of the house. And I don't mean that it's his stuff left over. They'll literally clean the house to get rid of him. It's like a banishing ritual, or burning incense, or like cooking bread in the oven so there's a different smell in the house. They'll like fucking get rid of them. So I bring that up because when it comes down to time management and organization, there is a way in which there's some sort of relationship between your environment and how you deal with it and your psychological state. And in strange ways that are not entirely intellectual, that are highly intuitive, hence the fact that women are usually onto this aspect of things, there is a way where if you're disorganized, you can, to some extent, come from the direction of cleaning in order to organize your mind. And I mean, there's the obvious feature of it, which is that if there's not shit everywhere, you can find what you need to find and get it done. And not be disorganized. However, I'm bad. Like if you saw the state of my desktop on my computer, it's just like thousands of files, not thousands, but literally scores across my screens. And, once every month or so, I'll come through and, stick the new memes I've made into the Twitter folder and clean them up and all the rest. So anyway, I'm talking too much. That is probably not very helpful, but I warned you at the outset that I'm not very good at this. Let me commune with myself. Allow me to meditate one last moment here. Think about whether there is true wisdom there. Truly, if it matters to you, there are any number of books on project management, and it actually does help. Like now I'm a screw up because I'm only responsible for myself. But when I'm in a situation where I'm working with clients, or I have to be accountable to, my coworkers or colleagues or whatever, I'm not a screw up like this. And the best lessons that I have seen that teach you how to be organized relate to project management, because essentially what you assume is that rather than it being you in the office dealing with a particular type of project, you you're instead managing a variety of projects, all of which you have to get done. So the lessons that you can learn from a book on project management are useful in terms of making the most of your time. And that involves, laying out what your actual goals are, making sure you have absolute clarity on them, making sure that you know that there's a measurable completion of the task, right? What is it you must do for this task to be crossed off and gone? Not just I need to do this, it's do exactly this, because that measurably shows that the task is taken care of. And then those get mapped out on a calendar based on order of importance, or the need for A to be taken care of before B and C, and you add in milestones and all the rest. And I've talked in previous streams about when you're in a situation where you can't do the thing you need to do now, but you're waiting on information to do it, get everything else ready so that when what you're waiting for does come, you can act immediately. So that kind of thing. Sorry, that was a pretty crappy answer, but I tried. Okay. Mongolian Doggerland. No, wait, there's one from Rogue Trade. No, John Sun. Don't you think that millennials have something rebellious about them, influenced by secondhand 60s culture of rebellion and its icons combined with Fight Club and Lord of the Rings? I would not have combined those specific films like Lord of the Rings. I'm not sure how that's about rebellion. And no, I don't know enough about millennials. And to be honest with you, I grew up as a Gen Xer. And so I feel like the Gen X generation is very specifically the one that referenced the 60s as the basis for a culture of rebellion. Whereas, I saw the 60s reflected in one mirror. The millennials have to look into two mirrors to catch a glimpse of it. So yeah, I don't think about millennials at all as being rebellious, like not at all. But you have to remember that I'm screwed up because I left the country twice for years, both times. And by the time millennials were anything of their own, and I was sort of being pushed to one side as the outgoing generation or whatever, or beginning to be pushed in that way with the younger cohorts coming up, I came back and I was just like, who are these fucking pussies? Why is everyone wearing panties that are too tight? Why are everyone's panties bunched up in their asses? Why when I go outside to smoke a cigarette, does somebody like 60 feet away walk by and go, right? Why are all the women like complaining about how men behave? Like, why is everyone talking about their food allergies? Like, I didn't understand any of it. And as a consequence, I don't know what millennials are. But whatever they are, I do not think of them as being rebellious. Like you could come down on Gen Xers for being overly ironic, as AA has done fairly accurately. And there's a lot of problems that go with irony. And certainly my generation is subject to them. And there are all kinds of things about my generation that are just nasty. But I see it as being far more genuinely rebellious than millennials. Like probably if you gave me a list of like 10 terms and rebellious was one of them, and I had to choose them or rank them in order of importance in terms of what applied to millennials, like number 10 would be rebellious, and I'd be hesitant to even put it on the list. Rogue Trader says, thoughts on Nicki Minaj becoming the most distributive? I think what you mean to say is most widely shared, distributed voice on the anti-something issue. How will they deal with her? Well, we're seeing how they'll deal with her. They kicked her off of Twitter. But isn't she the like WAP woman? Yeah, I'm kind of in between. Like Gab is like, get on board. It's so totally cool that Nicki Minaj is fighting back. And I get it. 22 million follower Twitter account. It's good to get the word out that something is fishy. On the other end of the spectrum, and again, I'm in the middle, is AA saying things like, what does it matter? Who cares? It doesn't matter. But, these people are not our friends. They're not our allies. Sure. But, you could also say that if Alexander's fighting an army that has a bunch of elephants and the elephants begin to go berserk because, a bunch of, some Macedonian phalanx, jabbed it with their long spears or pikes or whatever they were called back in the day. It's probably some specific Greek word that Marcus Furius Pertinax would come and explain to me. But if that elephant goes apeshit and runs sideways all across the enemy's ranks, I'm not against that. And I'll, so to speak, retweet it. So yeah, I'm kind of in between the go Nicki Minaj and the AA thing of they're not our friends. I'm just like, look at it like a force of nature going sideways, or look at it like a beast of burden going sideways, and it becomes interesting. But they'll deal with her the way they always do, by trying to shut her down. The thing is that a number of people will notice, and it's going to be a demographic category that skews very heavily towards those who are already unwilling to be vaccinated. So it should be interesting for them. It should be interesting. Mongolian Doggerland says, Semigog, what is the correct pronunciation of the place known as Narlands? And where did misconceptions around this originate? I am not positive, but I've been told by my family time and again. My family is from New Orleans on both sides, as Mongolian Doggerland understands, but many of you might not know. My mother and father, they and their families are both from New Orleans for quite some time. We call it New Orleans. It's called New Orleans. And that's how you say it. That is the only way you say it. I think the misconceptions began when some people wrote it as Nawlins. And so they like to call it Nawlins. Nawlins. I've never heard anyone say Nawlins. Never, ever. It's New Orleans. That's how you say it. That is the only way to say it that I am aware of. There are others I know of who know about that place, and indeed some of them may even live there now, and they may wish to opine on it, but that is my family lore. And this is a family that's like, you got to barrel your water, darling. So, I kiss you ass in Canal and Royal. So share. Yeah, that's the only way I ever heard it, is New Orleans. People talking about the apple juice going to my head. Nonsense. We have a Dangeresque, another longtime channel follower, welcome, saying, early millennial here. I've always noticed a huge drop-off in testosterone between the Xers I knew and millennials. I think that makes up for more of the differences than we'd like to admit. I don't know. Has that happened generationally? I mean, because I will tell you, the whole term metrosexual, men trimming their chest hair and all that kind of stuff, started under Gen Xers. Excuse me. This little bit of orange is getting in my way. But we don't want to waste the delicious apple juice that surrounds it. So I remember metrosexual was a thing, and it hit. I'm going to mess up my last cigarette here, which I'm about to smoke. That hit the Gen Xers. So there was a bunch of that, like, plucked men running around and, waxing your eyebrows. Oh my God. One time this fucking hairdresser woman, I want to call them all barbers, but somehow calling a woman a barber doesn't work. So whatever, hairdresser, man, this woman convinced me to wax my eyebrows. Never, ever, 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 ever again will I ever let that shit be done to me. Oh my God, it was so embarrassing and it was horrifying. I had to go around with these waxed eyebrows. I looked like a Romulan fake. Um, it was absolutely horrifying. Yeah, so there was a lot of that going around where the men were supposed to not seem like men. So I don't know if that part really starts with the millennials. I think that the Gen X crew got hit with that quite a bit. Um, and then I lived in a Muslim country for years where everybody trims their body hair because it's this whole Muslim thing about not having foofy hair, which now I tend to agree with. I don't shave my body or anything, but I trim the hair short. The whole idea of someone nude with like a foof, they look like they're wet and they rolled on a barber's floor or something, like fucking hair sticking up all over the place. It's not my scene, you know. The body bush is not so much my scene. On the other hand, that's just a matter of cleanliness and being groomed. So I don't shave my body hair off either. That's repulsive. This is all too much information for everyone. Um, all this by way of saying that it's not the millennials who got hit by this first. However, that said, they do seem to be like panty wearing. They do. I don't understand that part. Like, yeah, the noodle arms and it's just weird. Um, maybe they're, maybe there's a whole dimension of them that don't have this problem. And there probably is. Like I said, I'm not going to get heavily into the whole generational cohort thing because there are lots and lots of very serious bad problems with my own generation, no doubt. All right, let's move on that one, shall we? Horse Mumbler says, I think millennials are generally more enamored with the aesthetic of rebellion than actually rebellious. Insofar as there's a rebellious streak, it's pretty factionalistic. Yeah, I guess, but that's sort of like bitchy girl infighting, right? It's like mean girl stuff. Like, I'll just tell you, growing up in high school, this is entirely true. There is no exaggeration at all. I went in, and don't ask me how I managed it, but I got one side of a set of handcuffs around my algebra teacher's wrist, and I very quickly, before she could do anything, handcuffed her other wrist to the radiator. And she had to sit there in front of the class handcuffed to the radiator because I had done that to her. This is in high school. Another time, my friend, my old buddy Whit will talk about this very often. I love that he tells the story because, it would be bad form for me to tell it. I got called to the principal's office for having a mohawk in high school. And so I sat there with my buddy at lunch. And that day, on your little cafeteria trays, we had gotten sloppy joes. So I, looked basically up at the clock on the building and, I had to go and meet with the principal because I'd been called to talk to him in his office, Mr. Krivich. And I had to go. So the way Whit tells the story, he probably remembers it better than I do. I said, yeah, I got to go. And I took the bun off the remainder of my sloppy joe and I just smeared it all over my lower face. So there was like tomato sauce and little gobbets of meat stuck to my face. And I just sort of shook my face so the worst of it fell off. And I said, do I look good? I'm ready to go. And I literally went in to my meeting with the principal to do that. Now, I'm not saying it's stupid. It's I was in high school. I can be forgiven for my degeneracy. I was in high school, but that was my rebellion. I mean, and other things that I probably shouldn't talk about publicly, but like that was just growing up. I mean, stealing books from the bookstore or whatever. I don't see most, and fucking a lot. Everybody in my generation was fucking like crazy. And from what I hear, that is much less common with millennials. So I don't know. I don't see him being very rebellious. But to answer Horse Mumbler's key point, I think the business about the rebellion fundamentally, never mind. I'm not qualified to judge it. I'll leave it be because I'm going to embarrass myself further. Johnson says, isn't AA a millennial who LARPs as a Gen Xer? Millennial shaming is real. Maybe. I think he's right on the cusp. I think he says he's right on the cusp. Yes. Or perhaps he uses some other expression. other expression. Yeah, I think he could be called the very, very end of Gen X or the very, very beginning of millennial. All right. What else is there? I might run this on. I might run this on longer. Depends on how much I have in the way of cigarettes. We got 30 minutes left, but this is just so much fun. How could I stop? The only thing that would happen would be that I'd need to go get some more apple juice. Did I mention again? Look behind me, people. You see how lovely that Shashka is right there? You see how shiny it is mounted on the wall? And you see down here the Kindle, how freshly polished it is. There's something about pulling out your antiques and cleaning them up, thinking about how you'll pass them on in future, how a sword from the late 1800s and a dagger from the mid 1800s, or another sword I have that is, well, I'm not going to go over there and get it, but the blade is from the 1700s, certainly. The mount's probably from the early 1800s. How all that stuff will survive and you will pass it on to subsequent generations. Oh my God, it's awesome. Oh my God, it's awesome. Oh my God. Let's do this again. That goes out to D. All right. And what is next? Oh, we have Jesse J in the house. Another long-time channel follower here. He says, everyone I've met from New Orleans has at least a touch of that specific accent, but you do not express any semblance of it. How did you not end up with it? I don't know. See, that's a problem. Well, first off, it's because I didn't get raised there. I was born in Maryland. My family is all from New Orleans, but I was born still south of the Mason-Dixon line, and I was only there for 1 month before I moved to Virginia, and then further south, and then visited New Orleans frequently. I didn't get raised with it. I mean, let me be fair. Actually, the real reason is that my mother was ashamed of her accent and tried to hide it. And I hate it now. With New Orleans, it's probably better because, as I said, I think Northerners sound like hogs. And New Orleans, in many respects, sounds only a little bit, and only if you're not used to it, like a Northern accent. But who's that girl? She's been around for a while now. I think it's Nola Girl. When I hear her talk, I'm like, I can hear that. That's like relatives from down there. And I actually kind of like it a little bit. But yeah, I know lots of people from the South who tried to hide their accent, and I just hate them for it. Hate them for it. Like, bring your accent out. Wear it proudly. Fuck all these people. Fuck their normative standards for accents. Fuck all of them. But that's probably why. It's that my mother was trying not to have the accent. And my father, though, again, his family is all from New Orleans too, going way back. They used to have big buildings downtown with my last name on them. And my great grandfather was like, inviting senators down and hosting them and shit, like national senators, not state senators, federal, I suppose I should say, whatever. However that goes, U.S. senators. That's what I should say. He was actually raised outside the country for a time. So his accent's all over the place. And then he lived in the mid-Atlantic, sort of like Delaware-ish area for a time. That's when my parents had a house in that old seafaring village of sorts. Lewis. Yeah. So yeah, I didn't get it. I didn't get it directly. I mean, I can recognize it. I can't imitate it well, but even my mother, unless she gets drunk, she can't do the accent now, even though she grew up there, because it's a very specific accent and you have to get it just right. And like when I try to imitate it, it just sounds like somebody from New Jersey or something. Anyway, that's my answer. Moving along. What is next? See, I just found one and it reloaded. God damn it. Okay, I think I found it. And Dagbreaker says, Semigog Gen X making detention cool. The Breakfast Club. Yeah, that girl shaking her dandruff on her drawing. The Breakfast Club. What were they? John Hughes movies, Pretty in Pink. And then I don't know if it's the same director, but that vibe of Ferris Bueller's Day Off and all of that. Yeah, we did all kinds of things, man. I remember kicking in the roof of a swimming pool in order to be able to get down in there at night and steal their candy. Like it just, yeah. And a lot of other people who are much more serious, not like breaking into the pool candy room as a teenager. Yeah, there was a lot more serious rebellion that I'm not able to discuss, not able to discuss publicly, and I wasn't involved with it. Certainly, it was only my former friends, not presently my friends, like people who are just like, listen, all I need you to do is hold the gun. I need to get my money from him. All I need you to do is hold the gun. I'm like, let me think about that. No. All right. Moving right along. Alabaster says, Semigog were the only foreign places you have lived in non-Western. Well, at length. At length, Turkey. I think I lived in Spain for 4 months or something. And when I was in Turkey, I was constantly going to Greece, like constantly. So you could say I was there a lot. And Turkey is probably the closest to non-Western that is still half Western. It's sort of the bridge, so to speak, between worlds. And you've got, Circassians there. You've got Albanians. You've got Muslim people from former Yugoslavia who went there. You've got Georgians. And Italians, the Genoese and Venetians had colonies there. And the Greeks were there up until, the end of World War I. So I wouldn't call it fully non-Western, but that's the closest, and that's the main place I lived. I spent a lot of time in Europe, though. A lot. Und what is next now? Jesse J, do you keep up with any of the local music acts from New Orleans? No, I have not kept up with anything from New Orleans. The last I had to do with any kind of musical anything going on with New Orleans was people from the old band Crash Worship, because two of them, ended up down in New Orleans. And if anybody knows where Marcus Wolf is, let me know. I'd like to find him again. He was an old Crash Worship member who is a friend of mine. Last I saw Simon Cheffins, he was doing stuff with Burning Man. Yeah. And those former Crash Worship people, one of them was like, making the costumes for some of the marching bands, because of the things that they were into. They were very much into New Orleans culture with, the different Mardi Gras groups and the marching bands and parties and street performances in general. But no, I don't keep up with anything contemporary metal, certainly. Okay. And what is next? Charlemagne's talking about how the music in New Orleans is shite. Yeah. I don't know. John Ski is in the house. Nice. Hello, John Ski. All right. What else do we have here? Do we have any further questions? Is this it? You guys are going to leave me hanging here? What am I going to be able to talk about? Am I going to have to go over to my notes here and rant on something? Let me see if anything's good. I'm not feeling the inspiration to talk about the business of retrenching. I have notes on that. Well, there's my short little thing about, if you want to know, because I tweeted about this and it just needs to be shared with everyone. If you want to understand what the coming one world government will be like, airports. It's going to be exactly like airports. They're going to shit all over you. You're going to have, officious little, middle management staff ordering you around. Just think of the TSA with their uniforms, and that's going to be like all the people you work with. Like the HR department of whatever major corporation you work for is going to be exactly like TSA. How's that? That's something I wanted to share. Airport staff is literally the pioneering example of the whole world on one shitty standard, one that couldn't care less about you, an organization that couldn't care less about you, is perfectly happy to have, armed police haul you away for refusing any mandated procedure or even being what they deem as uncooperative or impolite. Think about like when you're thinking about like pushing back at an airport and complaining about how you've been treated and how you have to silence yourself because someone is going to haul you away, because that kind of talk won't be tolerated in an airport, much less on a plane. That's exactly what the coming one fucking world government is going to be like. All right. Has anyone else come up with another question? Is this it? Is this it? Oh my God. Oh, we have one from Robin. With regards to Gen X having more sex than current high schoolers, what about what Turnip said about the rampant degeneracy of high schoolers? Is that an all or nothing thing? I don't know what he calls rampant degeneracy. I did not catch all of that stream, I am ashamed to say. So I heard Turnip teasing how he was going to go through his list of the rampant degeneracy. I have not listened to the whole thing. Now I'm going to have to go back and listen, because I think what's going to happen is I'm going to listen to his list and I'm going to be like, check, did that, check, did that, check, did that. But let me not speak too soon, because when I was a kid, no one was jerking off to cartoons. Everyone wanted women. And there were a couple gay guys who hung around who were chasing boys or whatever, or you'd like meet them the next day when they disappeared from the party and you'll be like, what happened last night? And they'll be like, I was so drunk, right? But for the most part, it was human beings having sex with human beings, and it was primarily heterosexual. So I shouldn't rush in and say that I have, I'm likely to have things in common with what Turnip would be listing, because there are no cartoons. And none of this like transgender, whatever. I mean, when I was a kid, you had like there were the punk rockers, and then there were the death rockers. And I was sort of midway between the punk rockers and the death rockers. Death rockers later came to be called goths. They were not called goths when I was a kid. We were listening to like, Sisters of Mercy and Bauhaus and shit. And it was all like death rock, rah. Skull buckle boots, rah. And then we had the kids who were like, they had like extensions, and a bunch of them were gay, and they had like heavy face makeup, and they'd wear like patent leather Doc Martens instead of normal Doc Martens. And so it was just, it was androgynous, that segment of it, certainly, but it had not gotten to the point that we have arrived at today. I don't know. So I don't know what's going on in current high schools, but I can't imagine. I can't imagine they're having as much sex as we were having. But then again, maybe they've come up with all sorts of degenerate alternatives for it. Okay. Und what is next now? Oh, now we have some questions. If I were free to travel, where would I visit? I was thinking a little while ago that I wanted to go see Australia just to see how fellow white people developed. And now I just don't want to go. And I'd never wanted to go to Australia before, but like as of like 3 or 4 years ago, I was like, that would be cool to go see, go see Tasmania, go look at what the crazy areas are, go see how they live. And it was interesting to me to see like what white people became there. But now not so much. The only remaining places I really want to see, I want to go to Tamgali Tash in Kazakhstan. I want to go to the Caucasus, and I wouldn't mind going to Mongolia. But otherwise, I don't care. I've never wanted to go, never, ever wanted to go to South America. No offense. And I've never, ever, ever wanted to go to Africa, ever. Basically anywhere where they're fucking kissing bugs, too many damn bot flies and guinea worms. I don't want to go. If I have to have a Japanese encephalitis vaccination to go there, I'm not interested. I've never even wanted to go to India. Like Tim wanted to go to India and did. And I'm just like, no, don't care. Don't care at all. Like it's all about the Northern Hemisphere. And that's pretty much it for me. I mean, when I was a kid in high school, I was studying Arabic and I was supposed to go to this monastery on Sinai. And the trip got shut down, so I didn't go. So as a young person, I was like, well, maybe the Middle East would be cool. Now I don't care. Turkey, I'm still very interested in. I consider Turkey as part of the Northern Hemisphere band of Eurasia. But basically south of Turkey, south of the northern border of Florida, I don't care. I don't, there's none of it that really interests me. So yeah, I guess that's a quick answer. Charlemagne is asking me to check out New Orleans music. All right, I'm going to look very fast. What do we have? How bad is it? Meet the boys on the battlefront. Meet the boys on the battlefront. Meet the boys on the battlefront. 'Cause the wild Chapatula's gonna stomp some rump. What the fuck is this? What the fuck? Sissy Nobi. Sorry, peoples. I'm not even going to show this. It's so fucked up and degenerate. You know, though, I clicked through to it from my goddamn pop-up chat window, which I now have to reopen. Look at what Charlemagne did to me. Let me pull it up here. Where is it? Pop out chat. I'll get back to it like this. See what Charlemagne do to you? That fucker do me like that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Now we're back. So yeah, Charlemagne, I'm not sharing that, but it's pretty horrible. Like once upon a time, like I'm not into Dr. John and all that kind of stuff. But once upon a time, I dug, and I still will sometimes listen to like Professor Longhair or something. I mean, even like Clarence Gatemouth Brown, I'm not, jazz, whatever. All right, now. This is what screwed up. When I reopened my chat, I lost some of my old ones because it just started from where I am. Let me go back and see if I can save any of these. Let me get down here. Where are we? Hell, I'm all lost. You see what you did to me, Charlemagne? Oh my God. God, man, Charlemagne did this to me. Motherfucker. All right, now. Here's one that I can see. It's from John Ski. And I'll always answer me a John Ski question. It says, Semigog, has the U.S. pullout from Afghanistan helped or hindered China's Silk Road project? The answer is, I think in the short term, it is going to help it. And in the long term, it's going to utterly crush it. And we have to see if this business of how do I put this? We have to see if this business of the housing market crashing in China really comes through. Alabaster is talking about docks with red laces. Like, how many people remember what the different laces meant on Doc Martens? This wasn't like white laces on Doc Martens was white power. It was red laces. I remember something about yellow. I don't even, God, man. And how they had to do them all straight across, and how many holes your Doc Martens had. Were they 8-hole Doc Martens? Were they 10 holes? Oxblood, 14-hole Oxblood Doc Martens. So yeah. Okay. So it looks like all I've got here, BDB says, Semigog, was Breakfast Club or Buffy the Vampire Slayer better? I never watched anything having to do with Buffy the Vampire Slayer. That was for losers. Actually, all the people, just to understand, when I was growing up, the people who got way into TV shows, there was nothing cool about it. if you knew the difference between the various forms of Star Trek and were interested in them and talked about whoever that fool is with the little thing around his eyes, Geordi or whatever it was, like if you talked about Star Trek, you were anathema. No one cared. No one watched all those TV shows and things. Like only losers were way into like every form of weird TV show when I was growing up. It's very much changed. Like I never watched Seinfeld. Seinfeld was absolutely disgusting and repulsive. I never would have watched it ever. And I only just now, over the last couple months, watched the episodes simply because John D and AA talk about it all the time. And it was actually educational. It's a trip to see how those things unfolded across time, beginning to be worried about what you were allowed to say regarding a minority or something. You see those phases of the development of the quote unquote culture unfold as you watch the episodes across the 90s of Seinfeld. But I couldn't tell you a damn thing about Buffy the Vampire Slayer or any of that crap. Noah Solomon in the house. Hello, sir. Says, when is the next installment of Light and Darkness coming out? Well, let's go see. I heard something from Anteos about that. Let me see what he said. Und wer is it? The mighty Anteos. Where is he? Hang on. Just got to scroll up here to figure out when it is. Come now. All right. Where is it? I think you... Nope. It's got to be in here. Come on now, damn it. Sorry, Mr. Solomon. Okay. Quick heads up on the French Revolution stream. Topic is huge. Too much for one show. I expect to be done in early to mid-October. So it might be as much of a month before we have the first of the streams that's the next in the series. But you may have missed it, sir. At the beginning of the stream, I think I mentioned, or earlier certainly, that the one on Masons and the French Revolution is likely to break out into 2 streams. So yeah, expect from everything Anteos is saying, it's going to be mid-October. And what else do I have here? What other things are coming up? Okay, there's one that I've had planned for a while on strategy, and that is one where I'm going to talk to Jason Kona and Tim Murdoch. Basically talking to people who have been involved in these circles for quite some time in terms of lessons that have already been learned relative to strategy and specifically relative to communication strategy, since Jason Kona has done a bunch on that. I now have, agreement in principle. Both guys are willing to do it depending on scheduling. So I just have to finish reading one of Jason Kona's books. Check out his channel, by the way, No White Guilt, before I schedule that. There's also one that I've been threatening to do for a while. That's going to be on Christians and the right. That's also going to be a part of the strategy series. I know one person who's expressed an interest I'll definitely be getting on is Lambda from over on AA's channel. But some others, I have to give it some thought. And then hopefully I'm going to be doing something in future with a couple of very interesting gentlemen, and it will be on the subject of the British school system. And isn't it reversed over there where, like, for them, public schools or private schools, whatever it is that raised the elites of the British Empire? I'll be talking about that with a couple of people, I hope, and that should be very interesting because I want to look at how that institution created the formidable creatures that extended the empire of perfidious Albion. So yeah, that I hope will be a very, very interesting stream. I'm trying to put that together. There's also one I'm looking at that will be on stress response and how to deal with stress given our current circumstances. And I have one person who's agreed to that so far. That'll be Philosophicat, but I need to get at least another 2 people for the panel. Been talking to Geroyd about doing something on strategy because he's a very, very bright guy. And The only other person I think who's like hardcore strategic the way he is Frody, and they both come at it from different directions, but they're both always trying to think carefully about like, how can I adjust based on what we've seen to make this more effective and move forward with it. There's also one, I'm thinking of doing a dating show. Or it could be, you could call it a marriage show. But I'm thinking about a dating show. There needs to be a right-wing dating show, and I'm very interested in doing it. And as a matter of fact, I want to talk to Charlemagne about it. However, how much do I want to give away? I'm not going to say any more about it at present, but I think it could be fucking funny. And I've already had a friend who's already helped me out with channel music, working on jingles and the rest for it, which could be interesting. I've also got my buddy Gerard, who studies ritual systems, the emergence of religious attitudes and behaviors. And I was thinking of getting him together with a group of Catholics to deal with this whole idea of the need for creed, if you will, the idea that there has to be a religious vivification. And, you got things like over on AA's channel, they bring it up all the time. And I think he's quite right about it, where they're talking about things like Mark Brahman and the idea that they're going to create some new, Apollonian religion. And it's just like religions are not created by men. You can argue that in some places it looks like they are. And I think a good example of where people came in and took a core vision and turned it into something, took a core religious vision that arose spontaneously in the way that you would expect religious inspiration does, and then attempted to make something out of it. I think you could say that the Baha'i faith is something like that. Nevertheless, it has a core that we can only take at face value as a personal religious experience, very much in the tradition of the Imamate and Persian religion. But these people who think that you can just sort of cobble together some fucking pastiche and that it will spring forward with the energy that actual religious movements do when they appear. I mean, whatever you think about Islam, the bottom line is that, it appeared in the 7th century, 620-ish. And, by the 800s, you have shit with Harun al-Rashid attacking Byzantium. Within 200 years, they've, and certainly within 400 years, they've taken over huge, vast areas of territory. That doesn't appear because, in the 7th century, some, Muhammad was a Mark Brahman equivalent, and he was like, you know what? I think it would go really well if we had an Apollonian religion. That's not how it works. There is something that must break through from the other side, metaphorically speaking, and actually strike someone for real, so that they're like, oh my God, I was taken to the top of the fucking mountain, right? That is where religion comes from. And we have religions that continue to exist that carry that energy within them. Certainly Christianity qualifies. But I think about the things that are being done to certainly to the Catholic Church, with Pope Francis, and I wonder what the prospects are for the reemergence of a properly religious attitude. And so I've been thinking about that as another episode too that might be interesting to do, because my buddy Gerard has done quite a bit of research on the idea of music and ritual and experience, and how that core of experience gives rise to culture in a very much bottom up rather than top down imposition, commie, social engineering kind of way. So that's another one I'm considering. All right, let's go back over here and see what else we got. This is supposed to end now, but I'm going to go on for a few more minutes. I think I'm going to go on until 2.5 hour mark. So that's literally 30 minutes. I'm only going to have to go and get one more cigarette. I'm going to look at the questions here though, and see if we got any good ones. Had some good ones so far. Actually, man, can I quote this? This is so good. Where is this? It's from El Vaquero. Yes, there we go. It's absolutely right. Semigog, the degenerates in high school these days are the teachers. Yes, indeed, sir. Once upon a time, it was the students. Now it is the teachers. And that is a horrifying, horrifying thing to consider. But I think it's a very, very much true. Anyway, El Vaquero 555 might even be recovering from the coof. I wish him the best on that. Okay. What else do we have here for questions? Zedes, you'll need to help me in the mix, Semigog. I've matched a number of people. Zed, I don't know what that's about. I lost a little bit of my chat there for a bit, so sorry, I don't know what you're referencing there. Mongolian Doggerland says, consider Scott Tungai for the Christians in Right stream. All right. South African in America. Okay. Excellent. I shall. King Salmon Fish knows a shitload about stress. I believe you, brother. 99 Iron Duke says, Semigog, if you do Christians and the right, you must try to get Dave the Distributist on. Yeah, I'll take a look. I haven't watched much of his stuff. There's certainly several things that I've seen from what of his stuff I have watched that I disagree with. But he is certainly a bright and perceptive man. No doubt about that. So I'll take a look. I'll watch a little bit more of his stuff. And I know he's buddies with some of my AA side peeps. Linda Hunter says, I reckon having Lady of Shalott on as a guest would be a good stream. Yeah, I caught her on the Australia stream over on AA's channel, which I recommend to everybody. Everybody go follow AA. If nothing else, even if you disagree with him, it's fucking funny. The best thing about AA's channel, I mean, he's got a lot of good people. It's fun. It's kind of like, you know, what I would imagine a salon was like once upon a time. And I'm not talking about where you get your fucking haircut. But he's also funny. That's the thing. He's actually funny. Now that's weird. Alabaster's talking about like Doc Martens and stuff. This isn't an Alabaster from my hometown, is it? Because I used to know an Alabaster. All right. But I'm guessing it's probably not the same person. And Alabaster's asking about the UK, saying you don't want to go to the UK. Their men are more metrosexual than ours, even. Good people and all, though. Man, I don't know. Morgoth is not a metrosexual. Not a fucking chance. Not a chance. Even look at Woes, man. Woes, I mean, that's Scotland, of course, but I mean, he's not a metrosexual. I believe it about some of them, though. I have been to the UK twice, though, and I will tell you about that briefly as soon as I get a cigarette. Okay, you ready, ladies and gentlemen? Count to 10. Proud of me? That was fast. All right. So yeah, I went to Britain twice. One time was in like 94, and I was visiting this Turkish academic chick who was going to school in Reading, and she came and met me in London, and that's when I got that horrible place off Vauxhall Bridge Road where the damn Scottish woman in the morning would press this fucking buzzer. Oh my God, I'd come home drunk, and they had this buzzer thing that they used to like wake. There was some weird Protestant shit where they just didn't want you sleeping in. Like they decided that since their place was so inexpensive that they would take it out of your soul in misery. And so I'd be lying, and it was one of those horrible spring beds that just like sags underneath you, and you can feel the metal springs, and they squeak. It's just horrifying. You're like, oh my God, this is horrifying. This is like a scene from fucking Papillon. Right? I'm in some prison somewhere, and then you'd be lying there all dehydrated. This was when I was very young. I was in my 20s, and I drank lots. So you'd be lying there in bed like, because you didn't drink water before you went to sleep, and you're so fucking dehydrated. And there would be this fucking that's some fucking buzzer that they ran from downstairs to wake you up to come and get breakfast. And then I came downstairs, and there were fucking beans on toast. Beans on fucking toast. That was my London experience the first time. And anyway, the Turkish girl got pissed off at me and went back to wherever she was. So I was stuck there for like 2 or 3 days. And yeah, I got shown around a little bit, and I got, pulled in and shown around the club scene and stuff. It was pretty cool. There was actually some bar I went to. What's the name of that guy? Christopher who was the guy who was in the Highlander and Christopher Lambert? That's right. I was at some bar, and he came in because a guy I met got me into all these upscale clubs, and I was all dressed like shit, and everybody was dressed really well. And I remember some girls came up to talk to me, and they were like, why are you dressed like that? And I'm like, I got to come up with something fast. I'm like, I'm a writer. Yeah, because everybody else was pretty flash. And then I went to the Midlands around 2006 or 7 maybe, for a wedding. And I got to drive around on one of those double-decker buses and wear morning suits and all that bullshit. Yeah. And I remember going into this one shop on whatever the high street was for where I guess I was in Stafford, right? Because it was in Staffordshire. Yeah, I was in Stafford. And I went into this place, and there were a bunch of these wool suits and tweed and shit. And there were still white women working there, old ladies. And I came in, and I did the Southern thing. I was like, hello, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. They're, oh, it's so nice that he's saying yes, ma'am. It was fun. It was all right, but it was weird at the end of the night when the pubs let out, because everybody stumbled out into the street. There was it literally was like Shaun of the Dead, but this was before that happened. I think it was before that movie ever came out. I certainly hadn't seen it at that point, but you just had all these people come pouring out of the pubs, drunk off their asses, because they had 3 drinks, in the last 15 minutes, because they were closing early or something, and they'd all come stumbling out. It did not. Going out to clubs in Britain, any nightclubs when I was growing up, there was a chance you'd get in a fight, sure. But Britain just seems like the place, or it did at that time anyway. It just seemed like it's if you want to drink and fight, come to Britain. I never understood that part. But I've been twice. Oh, sorry, let's do this. Another homage to D. Come on now. I've got to adjust my wick. I don't have anything to open it up, so I'm just going to try again. Oh, come on now. All right. And what's next? We have about 20 minutes left. What did I miss? Johnson is asking about millennials on Chan pages. I don't know enough about that to comment. God, I've been missing whatever this dialogue is going on here. All right, there's the question about UK. Now I'm getting oriented again. There's the one about Lady of Shalott. 99 Iron Duke on Dave the Distributus. And by the way, hello, 99 Iron Duke. Everybody check out his channel too. Got an excellent accent. He does. All right. Just want to call him Sergeant Major. You're hi, Sergeant Major. Aye, Sergeant Major. What's next? That was the one about the guy from South Africa for Christians. There's the question from Zedez I didn't understand. Hopefully I'm moving in here and we'll catch up. Lady of Shalott says, I'll think I'll cry in a moment. Semiagog is describing a world that is gone now. What? The experience in Britain? Well, I guess it is. I mean, 2006 isn't recent. 99 hour Duke says Zippos are more a hobby than a lighter. Yes, that is true. That is true. Fucking beans on toast. Whatever. Fuck all that beans on toast shit. That's the other thing. Have I talked about this before? I've talked about it many times. What is up with people from the British Isles? AA will do this, actually. Whenever AA talks this way, it makes me think of drinking with people from the British Isles when I didn't know much about the place. AA will be starting to read a super chat, and then he'll answer the discussion, and then he'll start to read the super chat, and then stop and say something else about the discussion, and then half read the fucking super chat. It's exactly the way it was. And I've talked about this before. Some of you may have seen it. With Brits, when you're talking to them, they'll have a drink. Mine is now done. And I don't want to run away again to fill another one. Anyway, I'd get more stupid. But imagine this has something in it. And you're talking to a Brit. And he'll be talking. And he'll be telling you something. And he'll be talking. And he'll be telling his story. And then he'll seem to pause. He'll bring the drink to his mouth. And before he drinks, he'll stop again. And he'll continue to tell you his fucking story. And then it'll seem for a second like and then he'll come up with something else to say. And then finally, when the punctuation is absolutely right, he'll drink. There's something going on with that. I swear. And that behavior is somehow reflected in AA's inability, I guess, through his Welsh bloodline rather than his Persian one. There's something of that informs or shapes the way in which he can never just move on to the next topic without going back and half reading the super chat and having half a thought. There's something going on with that. And just drinking and talking in general with Brits is something that maybe it doesn't need it anymore since Lady of Shalott says she's going to cry. But once upon a time, it would have been interesting to study that culture. I guess all the pubs are pretty much closed now, though. Man, you're wise overlords. They're more than happy to tell you how it is and how it should be. Just ask them. They'll tell you. You're wise overlords. They know better. On to other subjects. Yeah. Never listened to Moby, that weird ass bald dude. What else do we have here? 99-hour Duke says yes. A pisses me off when he does that. And I'm an Englishman. Cole, by God. Yeah, I'll tell you, Lady of Shalott, that business when they threw people out of pubs, it just looked like that's where they're like. It reminds me of that joke that I've told many times or whatever. It's where the guy moves out to the country and he's out there by himself, down some distant country road, and somebody comes pulling up in this old pickup truck and says, "Hey, I'm your neighbor. Nice to meet you." And the guy says, "Yeah, nice to meet you too. I'm new here." And the guy says, "Yeah, why don't we have you over? We're going to have ourselves a little party." And the guy says, "Oh, all right, party. I'm into that." And the guy says, "Come on by, man." And the guy says, "Well, what's going to be happening there?" And the guy says, "Well, first there's going to be drinking." And the guy says, "Well, I like that. Count me in for drinking." And then he says, "Well, then there's going to be some fighting." And the guy says, "Well, now, if I had a few drinks in me, I'm all up for it." And then the guy says, "Well, and then there's going to be fucking." And the punchline of the joke is the guy says, "Well, who's going to be there?" And the guy says, "Me and you." Right. But that part about first there's going to be drinking, then there's going to be fighting. That reminds me of Britain, except after seeing that bit with what's that damn, we were just talking about it. Damn it. I'm old. I can't remember John Lennon and I can't remember Train Spotting. It's going to be first there's going to be drinking, then there's going to be fighting, then there's going to be junkie shitting in beds. Except these days, maybe what it is then there's going to be taxi drivers raping a girl. Never mind. I didn't say that. Susan, pay no attention to what I've said. All right. Maybe they close the pubs, coming from Matthew Daniel. Maybe they close the pubs, but I get drunker at home anyways. Forget the pubs. I will bring the pub home. Yeah, you want to drink with people, though. Like, this is the closest to me drinking with people, and I limit myself to 2 drinks just so I don't make too much of an ass of myself. But you want to drink with people, man. That is an old Indo-European ritual. The idea of sharing drinks and beverages. I mean, you can carry it all the way over to like wassails, right? That is something ancient that is a part of our culture. And if we're going to like shave off the forebrain and remove inhibition and be like, oh man, I love you, dude. Let me just tell you how much I love you, man. If you're going to do that, then fucking do it with someone. Do it with people, not just any people. Do it with your people. And I guess I didn't get as much of that as people who grew up in the British Isles did, because you know you've got your own pubs, you know the people there. There are a few bars like that in my town where people knew each other, and you'd run into people you know. You sit in a booth together, you know. Somebody gets up, puts their quarters in the damn jukebox. But I think a lot of that is gone. God, people don't even drink together. I'm going to get depressed, man, on this subject of, you know, how our betters know so much better than we do. Just ask them. They'll tell you. To the idea that people don't properly drink with each other anymore. To the idea that people are jerking off to cartoons. Oh man, it doesn't, there's no value in going to that place. It's just dark. You must maintain a positive mental attitude and you must meet your end with philosophy. And if you can manage it, which is far better, faith in something, by God. All right. Und what is next? We've got Matthew Daniel getting drunk at home. Matthew Daniel is bringing the people from the pub home with him. Hopefully you're not in Australia, in which case they'll come and explain to you that you're going to have to go, you know, wait it out in the camp or whatever the fuck it is that they've innovated. All right. I'm just going to have to roll through here because people aren't asking me. I'm going to have to see if there are any good final statements here in any case. All right. This is it. Let me see if I missed any further up. I got this much cigarette left and 13 minutes. You Judas fuckers. You're going to have to stand with me. What else do we got here? I do like 99 dude making fun of AA. That's good. AA's channel is funny though. AA is truly funny. The man is funny. Like I had an English bookbinding teacher. I got trained bookbinding in the Arthur Johnson tradition, which is sort of a late thing, a late last gasp of some of the vibe of the arts and crafts period, you know, like the Kelmscott Chaucer and the Dove's Bindery and that kind of stuff. And that's when, and some people have been following the channel for a while, will have heard it before. That's the first time when I heard about how do you take your tea. And I was like, what the fuck? My English bookbinding teacher comes in and says, how do you take your tea? And I said, what? She said, your tea. How do you take it? It's like, okay, all right. But I got into tea. She's the one who got me into drinking tea, man. And black pepper cookies and ginger ice cream. Because for some days I'd stay for 3 classes because I was trying to learn as much about traditional hand bookbinding as I could. And so I got to see the different classes because she traded me a thing where I helped her in her rose garden. I was young at the time. I was like 20. And she's like, all right, well, I suppose you can take some classes if you help me with the chicken coop and the rose garden. And yeah, I got to see the different classes that came in, and there was the cheese plate. When you're taking your bookbinding class and you can go cut delicious cheese and put it on bread. And then, yeah, man, and black pepper cookies. And I read all the church mice books, the Graham Oakley church mice books that she kept in her bathroom. That woman was a trip, man. She had like 17th century cabinetry, just books piled everywhere. I'm like, do you have any old books? She's like, well, there's this Coptic manuscript that's from the 18th century that were, you know, and the earliest one I did was blah, blah, blah. And she had actually, she rebound, what's his name? Himmler's copy of Mein Kampf. she rebound that book. She told me that there was a soul searching moment where she decided whether she wanted to rebind it, but it had historical value. Oh, the Brits and bookbinding and pepper cookies, rounding and backing hammers, lying press, the tub, yes, sewing frames, standing press, litho stones, paring knives. That's another thing that everybody should do. Everybody should have their own training in a trade, an old tradition, because man, that teaches you. Like I'm sitting there at like 19 years old and there's this old woman who's got like a leather apron and not a bit of makeup on her, her hair tied back all austere and her little tools in her leather apron. And she's like, now listen closely. I do not want you to take notes while I am speaking. I want you to watch while I am speaking. You can take notes and should take notes immediately after I am done, but your full attention must be on me. And she'd go over everything. Paper has the grain this way. This is a forage. This is how you deal with a French joint binding. And yeah, she wasn't good though for asking questions why. She did not want to hear about why. And I learned later from one of her oldest students that she'd had a husband, Theo, I believe was his name, and he had died. They had both, he was on the conservation side and she was on the binding side. So he could like chemically treat your paper to take care of, lignin breakdown or whatever. And he had died. They had this perfect relationship where they're off in this beautiful house with their studio and their ancient furniture and piles of books and their chicken coops and their rose gardens. And her husband had died. And I learned later that apparently Theo had been the one who answered the questions why, whereas Anne was very much of the tradition of shut up and do it as I say. But that was kind of cool. So I had a proper English bookbinding training, which I guess most Americans don't get. Kim and Miles says, was she hot? No, she was not hot. Not even a little bit. The first time I called her, I was looking into binding and all the rest and wanted to learn about it. And I was like, blah, 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 blah. Her voice was so deep. I was calling her, yes, sir, the whole time. And she said, don't call me sir. And it's on a telephone call the first time I ever spoke to her. And I said, well, I'm so sorry. I come from the South. And we try to be polite that way. And she said, then call me ma'am. Anne was fucking awesome. And that cat, Jeremy, that would climb up to the top of the fucking lying press, that was good. Black pepper cookies, ginger ice cream. Those were the days. All right, man. What we have these days is nowhere near as fun. I just want to tell you people, I fear for the children. I fear for the children because they're fucking... I mean, all young people are dumbasses. Let's just be realistic about it. But they've got no guidance. And now I'm fucking old. So I'm thinking to myself, pretty soon I'm going to be the elder that people are going to ask for advice from. Do you know how fucked everyone is? If my generation is the one to which or to whom, I don't know how you say that, others turn for guidance. Oh my God, man. I tell you what, whatever's going to happen, it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse before it gets better. All right. What else? Do we have any other questions? You're asking if Ann Kala was hot. No. Actually, wait, man. I might have a picture of her. Hang on. Let me see. I think I found one online recently. Let me see. And Kala. Oh, the recents? Fuck. There we are. No. Hang on, peoples. I'll see if I can find my bookbinding teacher. This. Can I make this open? Why is it not opening? God, I hate this new operating system. It's such shite. Okay, that's not working. Let me just try it in Photoshop. Maybe it'll open there. Otherwise, sorry. Nope. Let me just see. Maybe I can find it over here. My bookbinding teacher. Let's see if I can find her. Yeah. This is all you could see of my bookbinding teacher. Let me open this. This is years later, but she looked much the same. So God, come on now. Oh, come on now. God damn it. Here we go. This is my bookbinding teacher. You'll see. No, she was not. She was the real deal, man. And this studio actually, maybe this is, she might have changed her studios. The one, I don't remember the one I was in before being brick at all. So maybe this isn't the one. Let me see if I can load this up. Sorry. Wait a minute. Let me get over here. Share screen. Yeah, we'll do it over here. There we go. Yeah, this is my bookbinding teacher. Let me get her up front. That's on a sewing frame, by the way, a very nice, grand, large sewing frame. Yeah, so as you can see, she was not a looker, but man, she knew her shit, and she taught it well too. Very happy to have had that experience. And as a matter of fact, I still have my gear. So that is what I will be doing. Hey, can you guys hear me now? I think I took myself off the stream. So yeah. Anyway, yeah, you can also, hopefully everyone can understand why she was pretty hardcore. She was not playing around. She was hardcore about teaching her shit and was not taking any nonsense from anybody about it. Okay, we got a few minutes left here, ladies and gentlemen. See if there are any good questions that I missed. Sid says that was Oliver's first love. No, it was not. She was she's not my first love, but she was badass. You got to learn from some proper tradesmen. It's like, also my dad was into carpentry, my brother, so I learned just a little bit about woodworking. Like, everybody has to have some kind of experience with working with their fucking hands. I mean, All right. Let me see. We've got our last questions here, ladies and gentlemen. 99 Iron Duke says, leaving everything else aside, the modern world is becoming more and more boring. Yeah. Although I expect it may well, you may well see it get a whole lot more exciting suddenly. Gap in inherited information from Dagbreaker. Cam and Miles talking about Gen X self-doubt. Cam Miles says, Semigog, I think a lot of people are stuck in the boomer truth regime's standards of success. Fuck all that vacations and middle class shit. Yeah, I want to make things, man. King Salmon Fish is saying, all right, you old bastard, I'll just email you a shitload of info on stress. Okay, thank you. Charlemagne. Okay, here's a final question from the main. All right, that's funny. Alabaster is saying, I'm the same Alabaster. Don't you remember the woods in the Pacific Northwest? No, I don't. The Alabaster I knew was a gay DJ. So if you're the same Alabaster, that's on you, dude. Charlemagne says, how does one actually do a 1940s radio show? That'll be a good last question. Or yeah, I'm coming right up on it, so I'm gonna have to do this fast. Normally what you would do is have everybody standing around with their tools for their sound effects and everything else, and they do it live with their microphones in front of them. But we would do a version of it that's essentially pre-recorded. So it's, think about a movie, but you can't see anything. It's like Or think about a book on tape, but with sound effects, and you can hear the sound of car doors opening and closing, or glass breaking on the pavement, or the sound of a gun going off, or someone running up a flight of stairs, or slamming a window closed, but with the dialogue and the rest and a narrator. That is a proper 1940s radio show type thing. So, God, he's fucking all right, you old bastard. Yes, I am an old bastard now. Believe it. So yeah, I guess that does it. Thank you, everyone, very much for sticking with me this long. This was totally a chill stream. Just pulled it right out of my ass. So, you get what you pay for. But please join me again. Like I said, we've got a number of interesting streams coming up, some that are going to be very, very good indeed. We're just in a little chill moment between the flurry of explosive creativity. So, yeah, until next time, I'm Semiagog. Or what did I used to say back in the old days? I used to say, get it? Got it? Good. Semiagog,